Yeah, okay. So nice to see the three films together. Were they also in order of like in chronological order of how you made them?
Sort of, but I finished Hibernate Mode, which is the second video before the first one. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, but actually it's at the same year, 2019. So yeah,
Yeah.
I did both of them actually, kind of producing the same time. Yeah,
Mm-mm.
but in the year 2019, yes.
Yeah, it's really it's amazing to see the kind of the progression of the research and the
Yeah,
thinking. Yeah,
yes.
really nice.
Yeah, I'm also surprised somehow when I put that together. I was like, oh, okay, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, somehow
it was
the
amazing. That
like
I
was
forgot.
yeah
it's
to see
about
the
perspective as well. Like when you
Yeah,
see all your works lined up like that, you think, oh yeah, okay, like I see all the threads move through
yeah,
time. Whereas when you're inside a process and inside a research and making the
yes.
actual work, that
Mm,
sometimes you don't realize the connection, the thread you've been following for so long. Um,
mm.
uh, River, did you have a question or thought?
yeah I do but I yes I mean so that was the online premiere of the title variation, right? And that was the work that previously presented at the C Lab in Taipei.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was. I mean, yeah, I was so glad to see that work because otherwise I didn't have chance to
mm,
see that exhibition in Taipei.
I think it was on. Was it online also as part of the C Lab exhibition as well,
yeah.
Sue?
They say that they have actually I haven't checked at that time, but they also put it online.
Ah,
Yeah, like yeah, but I don't know how's that going because actually this video like we make actually they have like 4 version, but now you see it's actually one of the version from the 4 because it's we do a coding to kind of selective process in the video which will divert to different versions. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Do you
that's
want to
also part of
explain?
the concept.
Do you
Yeah,
want to
but
explain that a little bit, Sue? The variations in that. So in the last
yes,
film that we saw, title variations, which is the third one
yeah, yes.
in the series for in the screening for people who are watching. Um, yeah. So do you want to explain about the how that sort of functions when it's on when it was installed in C Lab and on a
Yeah,
loop?
yes, because I think I can. Yeah, but well, like first I would say that it's commissioned project by Sydney Opera House and C Lab. And so actually the premiere in Australia is next year in February. Yeah,
Delayed.
but anyway, delayed. So yeah, but it's good like we have this chance to do the screening. And the part of the variation is like in the developing process. I'm thinking how to have this yeah, I invite a friend Ian to do the coding for the variation, and I'm thinking like how to make yeah, make this not only movement of the waves, but thinking how the waves move and how this waves move, and then some some things have been brought together and some part is left, but at the same time the waves also move something new with it and forward. So I'm thinking how to develop that yeah in the video. and so that's why, yeah, I think that's also part of the experiment I'm doing, the title variation, to do with the coding, to think, yeah, because the variation in the different version is like I would say technically the image is different and the text is also different, but it depends how it put together, so they create another variations. Yeah, so that's also the variation, like, yeah, variation aspect in the video, but also that in the process we are experimenting on how to say a collective work, but which I invite Ange to work together, and also other friends like the music composer Fang Fang. We work together from, yeah, for many years. I think the Water Sleep too. She also make the work for the sound, and Ting is doing like a storyboard, and Sonia is doing the script. So in the process, actually, I open up the process of the making with all the collaborator, and I'm the mediator in between to weaving the idea. Actually, we do more one-to-one conversation, and I brought what I, for example, with Ange and what we discussed, and brought to Sonia, who is writing the script, and then we go from there and go somewhere, and then bring it to another people. So we are also like, in the process of that, I'm also thinking this abstract form of the movement of the waves into the collective process of like making.
Yeah, I felt in that process you were the central node connecting everybody. Yeah, so yeah, so I think I mean, actually, even I guess I don't know how you've previewed that, Sue, but I know for me, I haven't seen the variations kind of, and how they, like, I've seen each different variation, but I haven't seen it installed where the kind of
it's in loop,
the coding is happening.
Yeah.
So it also feels like there's more hiding somehow.
Yeah.
Yeah, or there's like the undercurrent. You can sense the undercurrent, but what you see is kind of the wave that's on top. I was wondering if anybody had a question or some sort of comment, thought, then feel free to turn your microphone on and speak, or you can also write in the chat. And in the meantime, I think, Sue, is there anything? So because you said you're also surprised to see how many through lines there were across the three works when you view them one after the other.
Yes.
And I wonder, can you articulate a kind of the kind of things that draw all of the, or that are present for you across the three when you see them together? How are they different together than when you experience them alone?
Yeah, I think for me there are many aspects I can speak of, but maybe from really the visual layer of the waves, like the first you can see in Water Sleep 2, I talk about, this water and light have been divided by the infrastructure, because like the first work is much to looking into the past infrastructure of the city. And and that also in the visual part you can see different waves form, but from above or from reflection and etc. And yeah, I think that's also, and also in the second like hibernate mode, which is much in the later, which that is it's yeah, it's yeah, I would say the digital representation of the waves, and that's a simulation of the 311 earthquake in Japan, which it creates a tsunami from Japan then to Antarctica, and it break, like it chip off one, like it creates an iceberg in Antarctica because of the waves. So there are just some relations of my interest, and collecting for me is there's a relation, but from the visual layer, which is like I would say just quite simple one. But then in tidal variation, I think I'm really into this um, mediation of the waves, or this what I call wet mechanics of seeing. Is like it's not perceived as a waveform you could see, but it's more like yeah, maybe yeah, psychological or kind of phenomenon create through that kind of experience, which is not see as a physical form, I would say. Yeah. So yeah, so that's part I find, yeah, also quite interesting, which I didn't plan to do that. And I'm thinking more on the, yeah, water and light and diffraction. Yeah, but yeah, that's also another yeah, different, I think different direction, which I find it interesting. I'm not deliberate to do that, but then it just come together in that kind of web form. Yeah.
Yeah, I noticed this kind of across the three. To me, when I saw them all together, I saw also a fascination or an occupation with what, I don't know if this is going to make sense, but the kind of sensation of touching the surface somehow, or like this the kind of tension between the surface and the infrastructural depth behind, and what you can touch and what you can't, and what you can see and what you can't, and somehow the kind of the limits of a surface, and also the kind of imagination, or like pointing towards what is below or behind the surface. Because I'm thinking of obviously the surface of the screen, but also when you kind of move across these representations of the cartography, and you can sort of see that it's flat, but there becomes like a trick of depth with how things are shaded, or where the light and dark is like a trick of depth. But it also very much like the way that you scrub across the screen, where you're like grabbing with the little cursor, like makes the surface very visible, even though we're also in the trick of depth, and also this kind of to somehow the connection between like the limit of the surface, but also the limit then of like the horizon as a limit also, but as a kind of movable limit, and bringing that to a surface sort of condition. And that's what I also see sort of in tidal variations, that comes out in a very different way, in this kind of the use of image of light kind of brings the, like, constantly is bringing the viewer's attention back to the surface, even though we can see through, like it's possible to see through glass, it's possible to see through those type of like surfaces where something's happening on the other side, but the focus on the light continually brings the depth of field back and back, and it's sort of like using this limit of horizon and surface somehow to almost I would say choreograph the depth of field of the viewer's eyes somehow. I wondered if you want to say anything about kind of the limits of the horizon or something like this, because I think it comes up a little bit as well across the work.
I'm thinking about the limited of the limitation of the surface, and which is also connected to part of the pioneer drive we were doing in the performance. And I think it's, for me, it's just the part. It's actually not only visualize, but I'm interested about this way of broadening up this depth or this vertical dimension of the images. And or when we say about like light travel, not only in tidal variation and also actually in hibernate mode, I think in everyone, but every like three of them. But there's part when you say about this Antarctic cartography, actually that kind of it's called digital elevation maps, which actually the depth is created by the travel of it's a LiDAR technique, so it's the travel of the light creates the depth of the map. So for me that is it's quite technical, but for me it's super. I'm quite fascinated by that kind of depth create through the movement of the light. And that's also in a way to brought up this process of image making, which is usually we don't get access to, or we only see the surface of the image or final result of the image construction. But for me it's way much for me it's interesting to see the process of image making and process of in order to see the making of the image, and to see the actually there's the limitation of the surface is just because we didn't have that we didn't aware of the process of image, the making of the image.
And I think you illuminate that very well in your work, because there's something about the way that you are working with images where you reveal the kind of stratified layers of the image. And so one gets an opportunity to not only see the image, but to see the layers that make up that image and the infrastructure behind those layers, and then the kind of history behind that infrastructure. And there's so many, an image comes with so much that is allowing it to be there, both constructed technically, but also constructed socially and historically. And I think your work kind of picks at the layers of that and sort of reveals different layers of images and process of image making. We have some comments and questions. Charmaine says, "Lovely work." That's nice. How was it to use a human body, Angela, in the third film in terms of the rhythm of the filmmaking? The movements having its own allegorical personality, very different to the previous images. It was maybe we could talk a little bit about the process of that, because there was we weren't able to work in person, so it was a lot. Although I was in some ways doing some movement research in a studio in Critical Path, was also supporting that project with a sort of digital residency for us to meet and share some research. And I think it was a process back and forth of us sharing conversations about some design aspects of the Sydney Opera House and kind of trying to locate ourselves somehow within there. Maybe do you want to talk a bit about that, Sue?
Yeah, I think the process of making, I think, because I'm in Berlin and Angela is in Sydney. So I think this is also the time we experiment. I think the second time, right? Because the Pioneer Drive also we did this remote working for work production. And I think this time we have a new challenge. Challenge is like we couldn't meet and Andrew's there, and we also want to do speculate or how to say, like to think about the architecture of the Sydney Opera House, and we imagine it as I think as a data center, and it's like a floating entity on the water, etc. So like they are quite it's also a long process. We do research of the building, also kind of engineer or historical research of the building, and also to see from the archive of the design of the building design, and also go from there to work on some movements related to the concept of the building and also form of the building, and also with the glass. I think glass and mirror, which and the screen actually is the elements we constantly revisit throughout our collaborations. So the process, then later we go into and finally get the chance to get into the Sydney Opera House, which is kind of in the later stage of our production.
It was in the middle of lockdown in Sydney.
Yeah, it's in the middle of lockdowns. Yeah, so we were like checking in every week, when can we get access to the building to do the filming. Yeah, and also develop on site with her body. And maybe Andrew would like to talk a bit on that. Yeah, I think the body aspect and choreography.
So I think part of the question is that the movements have their own allegorical personality, very different to the previous images. So I thought maybe to explain the previous images, to contextualize that, is a 3D water that Sue made.
Yeah.
So that's the first images we see. So different types of 3D water. And then we move into some archival footage that was granted for use for us from the National Film and Sound Archive, which is of the actual building of the Opera House. And we sort of we're quite fascinated with how that footage was framed and captured, because a lot of it was this capturing the reflection of the water on the glass as it was sort of coming into the building, and how the glass would sort of like fly across the sky and then sort of like be attached to the building. So then the footage that variation moves to is me inside the opera house. In other variations, there's different footage of me doing different things in sort of like a dark space that looks at times sort of underwater in some ways, like sort of. So yeah, I guess it's important to remember with that particular film that if you were to see it on loop, you would see different versions of my movement and environment. But I love this variation because to me it really seems like I feel like through piecing together the different timelines of the opera house being built and me being in there, but somehow to me it really seems like that the opera house is built around me. Somehow you sort of see me and you see like this sort of shell being constructed, but then it comes back to then seeing my body inside it, and you never see me outside, but you only see other people outside on the other side of the glass as it's being constructed. So I kind of love that about this particular variation, that it feels like I'm this entity that then gets a skeleton around it, and that skeleton is the opera house, and and then the footage is somehow recognizable of the opera house, but we also tried to make it in some way where it could still produce a slight ambiguity and speculation about what that structure is. And the movements themselves, now I'm trying to take my brain back, sort of I was looking a little bit at tidal locks. So you see for a moment in that variation me sort of making sort of loose locks around my body, so like, I don't know, grabbing different parts, and with the blinking of the eyes, sort of, I mean, that comes across as many different things to me. That could be like refreshing in like my eyes, but also like the way that the screen constantly refreshes with light, or this kind of like the way that light flickers, the way that sort of machinic things, the rhythm of machinic things, the rhythm of sort of like adjusting depth of field, adjusting focus. But also there was this beautiful moment where what is the Spanish? There was a Spanish Sonia said.
Petas or some I need
it was
her.
About
I'm not the
tabs, like the Spanish.
Yeah, the tabs on the browser is the same word in Spanish for the eyelash.
Or eyelid maybe.
Yeah, eyelid. So it's like, so that's for that movement. That's why also in a way to from the language aspect and also movement aspect, we connect that together. So like you can see the movement of and like blinking eyes. Yeah, like refer to the like the refreshing of the tab or browser, or like the web page. Yeah, I read it in that way. Or
and that like every time you blink, you sort of get a new sort of wet layer on. Like if you keep your eyes, open, your eyes dry out.
Yeah, your eyes also get wet.
Yeah. So to bring somehow this like process of sort of embodying that kind of like wet tide somehow, but like the tiniest wet tide, like on the surface of the eyeball. And then like lying on the glass, try sort of, swimming sort of backstroke movements to sort of be like sort of dry swimming, and but on the glass, but you see the water, but separated from, I don't like all these sort of things.
Yeah.
There's another question from Vivian Roy. Hi, thank you for this beautiful screening. Pleasure. I also thought it was beautiful. Would like to know more about how did you guys find this wet connection with each other before and after deciding to work together?
Sorry, there's also one Ray.
Oh, I missed one.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll come back to Vivian.
Shihlin.
Yeah. Okay, so concerning, we'll come back to that one about the wet thing.
Yeah, we can combine.
Concerning tidal variations, I'm sorry, I might have missed it, but could you describe how you have been working with the concept of wave, also in terms of sound? Good question.
Yeah.
Sue?
Yeah, I think for me, I'm not how to say. I think maybe I can talk how I communicate with the sound designer or composer I work with. But actually, I usually just tell them the concept of the work. Yeah, I don't really do the. I think there are different way of working. I think from these three work, first, the water sleep 2, we are working more in a way of the sound effect from the image. So we didn't really talk about wave, or how I didn't also intervene in the sound layer of the making. But that is more image. I would say the first one is more image oriented aspect for the making. But the second one, hibernate mode, is quite different because actually it's a six channel sound installation accompanied with 2-channel video works. And that one we play more with the asynchronicity of the sound and image, which included the movement of the viewer in the space. And depending which area they stand in, they will get different layering of the soundtrack. Yeah, and that, I think, I deliberated working on the spatial arrangement of the sound, and also the sound of the hibernate mode is we start from the underwater recording of one scientific observatory in Antarctica. So we also work from the archive material, and then working on that to much, I would say, the environment setting of the soundscape. Yeah, and tidal variation, I think that's with Fang. Yeah, we really just working on concept, and yeah, I also share with her the digital water, the 3D water, the same I share with Angela. So I share her, okay, this is the footage I have, but I don't know what's the composition yet, and what is the concept of the work about, wet mechanics of seeing, and also like, kind of update with the process of the research into the architecture. And as well, we refer to the film Solaris. Yeah, I think with Fang we talk much about Solaris, the soundtrack for the film Solaris. So that's I wouldn't say, I think sound itself is kind of wave, but I didn't go to that direction, but I give much the I don't know if we could say freedom, but kind of direction for the composer to to interpret from their self, but I would say from the concept and image layer. Yeah.
And also you have a history of working together, and so there's a shared history and a shared understanding somehow.
Yeah. Yeah, with Fang Fang is really about water. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, I remember referring to the Solaris soundtrack and how it refers to this kind of glass, like playing sine waves off a glass. And I think that she was quite inspired by this.
Yeah.
Because waves maybe don't always sound like waves, because like sound waves are also waves, so they can sound like anything. But that sound to me is also so glassy somehow.
Yeah, they have this synthesizer and plays the glass plate, which the soundtrack is from that kind of technology. So it's kind of drawing on the glass and play the sound through the movement of the light, I would say. Yeah, which is super interesting. Yeah, for like it's all quite really inspiring to think about the movement of the light referred to the sound. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the sound is so beautiful in tidal variations. And you can feel the kind of like the history of the understanding between you two as well. Okay, maybe we should come back to this question. Would like to know more about how did you guys find this wet connection with each other before and after deciding to work together? Am I understanding the question correctly? Maybe I think it was like Sue had already been working a lot with these ideas of water and light, and you had already done this. You'd done the conversation, the podcast with Sonia. Corona Under the Ocean. And so I think you at least like by the time you invited me to work on this project with you, you had already you had kind of already this concept of the wet mechanics of seeing. So you had been researching this for some time, as we saw with the previous films related to water. So for me, I think this kind of like the concept of the wet mechanics of seeing has really come from Sue, and then I sort of just joined after that. So maybe Sue, you could talk a little bit about the beginning of this articulation around like the water and the wet mechanics of seeing.
I think it's also quite you can see from the screening that this aspect of my interest in the water and this presence of the wetness in the technological vision. I think I'm much looking into that in the the present in the water, and also how it can relate to cartography and territories and boundaries. I think actually there are several aspects I'm working about the water or water politics or elemental philosophy about water. But this wet connection, I would say it's something I'm thinking about much working into from the work, especially tidal variation. And also I'm writing article about it. So kind of in a process of looking back to my past practice and work, and to kind of find a system of reading about the wetness, or how it connected to technology. Or I see screen as wetware, which we usually think about technology, device, etc. You have to keep it away from the water, or you shouldn't put the water glass next to your computer, etc. But I just want to address this wetness of from the dry technology. So that's like something I'm working on now, to be honest. But I'm actually quite open on that, or free for interpretation from the work. But yes.
And I think there's a really nice connection between your previous work and interest in kind of mapping and cartography, and that we were also mapping the undersea cables. About you did this as part of the process, and I'll share this because I think it was really beautiful. Sue made this video on, like, by screen recording. Like by screen recording a kind of map, a world map. And she started in Berlin, where she was, and she worked her way through the world map across the ocean, where she could travel all the way to Sydney Opera House. So kind of trying to map out, like, across the water, how to get there. And looking so much at kind of the routes of the undersea cables, and which way they follow, and how they're sort of laid against a kind of also the like original communications route, like of telecommunications, but also that follows a kind of like colonial mapping route through the water. So kind of using these ways to map what is underneath the water, but not only through space, but also through time, and to understand how the kind of how those different routes are still just reinforced again and again through time. But it was beautiful, this sort of like little swimming cursor all the way through the water, like, and I just remember you being like, oh yeah, it's so far. Very far away.
It's just a really long screen recording and scrolling. It
was quite beautiful though. I wonder if anyone has any final questions, because I think we're a little over time, which doesn't matter so much. But is there any final questions or thoughts to sort of put in there? Sue, do you want to say anything else? Or you think you've said everything?
I think I speak a lot. I hope it's understandable, because it's I would say the work are quite complex, but it's really nice to share.
It just started raining here, and the rain is hitting the glass of my window. It's perfect timing. It feels so theatrical and like right on cue.
Yes, nice. Cinematic rain.
On theme as well, I think. Okay, well then maybe we'll leave it there. And River, is there something else that you need to say for other Adam wrap up?
Thank you for this program today, really, because I also, well, my personal comments, like I really like at the very final add-on, like it's really that within the the composition of the three films, I do find something like so corporeal and human when in the title variation having that physically choreographic aspect like into the AC film. So it was to me like no longer something very AI voice or like something cold, or it has something like really human there. And when that human aspect and presence being added onto those complexity of weaving archival and the speculative process of this talking about this movements of time and the waves. I mean, that was super beautiful to me. Yeah, just wanted to say this choreographic aspect has been really highlighting something onto this research of this SF film series. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. And for the time Jesus up as a ghost arrives in the party in program. Tomorrow we will have Brian, right? I'm checking
Yes,
my phone.
correct. Yeah.
Yes.
Brian Fuata.
Tomorrow
Water.
we're gonna have Brian with us. And the ghost will be coming tomorrow. Today it was the part of dripping, and tomorrow we're gonna have ghost. Okay. And so if you haven't registered for tomorrow's program, please do. And if you haven't already registered and you have the link, also please share to some fellows or folks that who would be interested in for tomorrow's event and the rest of this series curated by Ange. Go. Thank you so much. And
Thank you so much.
soon.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.